Site speed, or how fast your site loads, is a very important metric. Google has said it's a ranking factor. Sites that are too slow to load, ones that take more than 3 seconds to load, might be penalized in the SERPs. Slow sites will not rank very high. That said, sites that load seemingly instantaneously will not be rewarded by Google either. A site that loads in 0.3 seconds will not rank higher than a site that loads in 0.9 seconds based on the page load times alone. It only means that sites that take too long to load will have a significant disadvantage when it comes to ranking in Google. There are hundreds of factors that Google considers while ranking pages, and site speed is just one of them. While you want your pages to load as fast as possible, you would also want to have images and a lot of good textual content on your pages, even though these add to page load times. You want every page to be visually appealing to your readers and yet load very fast. You would not want to sacrifice content for speed. A good rule of thumb is that every page on your site would need to load in under 2 seconds. You could say that would be good enough. It isn't only about ranking. Site speed also matters a lot for conversions. Web users tend to be a very impatient lot and are not likely to wait for your page to load if it takes too long to load. If a page doesn't load in 2 to 3 seconds, many will click the back button and go visit another site. And if Google sees that too many people are going back to the search results after clicking on your site's listings, your site will be pushed down in the SERPs. So, not only will you lose potential buyer traffic, you might also end up losing rankings due to a slow site. Luckily, it's not hard to get your site to load in under 2 seconds. In this section, we will discuss how to get your site to load in under 2 seconds. You can get your site to load much faster as well, but that will require you to invest more in hosting and possibly a content delivery network. Before we measure site speed and discuss how to make your pages load faster, we need to have at least a basic understanding of what factors affect site speed. The main factors that influence how fast or slow your site loads are the number of components like images, scripts, and fonts that your page has, the size of each of these components, the host you are using to host your site, the geographical location of the user, and the network your users are on. If your page has a lot of components like images and scripts, your user's browser will need to make a lot of server requests. That will increase the page load times. There are a lot of things you can do to reduce the number of requests browsers will need to make to download components. Like you can put all of the images on a page into a single sprite so that a browser will need to make one request to download all of the images instead of having to make several requests. The size of each of the components. The larger each of the components are, the longer the page will take to load. If you have several large, high-resolution images on your page, the page load time will increase very significantly. You will need to optimize the images for the web. We will discuss how to do this in a while. The host you are hosting your site on can have a huge impact on site speed. Generally, sites hosted on shared hosting accounts are very slow to load. If you are sharing server resources with a few high-traffic websites, then your site speed will be affected. You would want to measure the time to first byte of your site. This is the first byte of content a browser receives after making a request. This is a very good indicator of how fast your server is. If the time to first byte is very high, more than say 400 milliseconds, then you might want to have a talk with your host about it. In a while, we will see how to use a caching plugin that will improve the time to first byte and generally make your site load a lot faster by caching all dynamic content. Cloud hosting or dedicated hosting would be much better compared to shared hosting but they are also more expensive. There are also specialized WordPress hosts that are designed to improve the performance of WordPress sites. If your site is hosted in Canada and a user from, say, New Zealand accesses it, the site may seem slow to load. Data will have to travel a long distance and the site might seem slow to load. Using a content delivery network or a CDN can solve this issue. No matter what you do, if someone on a slow network tries to access your site, the site will seem slow to load. If they are using a dial-up connection, for instance, there's not much you can do to make your site with lots of images load fast. Likewise, if someone is using a very old computer that's running a browser that's several years old, then your site will seem slow to load. Older browsers have fewer active connections, and this affects how fast pages load. Modern browsers have 6 or more active connections.